time to charge up. Bringing you the vibe, the pride, the power. This is Charge. Hey, yo, Buffalo, you're gonna love this one, Sadna. Nah, I lived in a lab making this joint. Hours turned to days until it was perfect. Bill's Mafia in the house. It's the Queen City anthem, built on grit and grind. Buffalo style, yeah, one of a kind. Snow falling heavy, but the fire burns bright under them stadium lights. The Mafia ignites, we hold it down, loyal through the pain. Every snap, every hit, it's the charge we sustain. From the fans to the field, it's more than a game. It's a family, a legacy, remember the name.
Charge up the field, let the crowd take flight. Buffalo's heart, shining so bright. Feel the energy under stadium lights. Bill's Mafia strong, it's the charge tonight.
Yeah, we hold it down. In the 716. Let's go. From the tailgates lit to the thunderous sound, you can feel the passion when the Bills come around. It's a blue-collar love, built tough and true. From the heart of the city to the red, white, and blue, we bring that heat, even in the cold. With every drive, another story unfolds. It's Buffalo pride, yeah, the Mafia way. Under them lights, we making plays. You feel that? That's Buffalo pride. Every fan, every play, this city rides. We built this together. We'll never fall. Bill's Mafia forever. We answer the call. Through the highs and lows, we stay in the fight. Buffalo strong, yeah, the future is bright.
Charge up the field, let the crowd take flight. Buffalo's heart, shining so bright. Feel the energy under stadium lights. Bill's Mafia strong, it's the charge tonight.
Yeah, we hold it down. In the 716. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. From the tailgates lit to the thunderous sound, you can feel the passion when the Bills come around. It's a blue-collar love built tough and true. From the heart of the city to the red, white, and blue, we bring that heat, even in the cold. With every drive, another story unfolds. It's Buffalo pride, yeah, the Mafia way. Under them lights, we making plays. You feel that? That's Buffalo pride. Every fan, every play, this city rides. We built this together. We'll never fall. Bill's Mafia forever. We answer the call. Through the highs and lows, we stay in the fight. Buffalo strong, yeah, the future is bright.
Charge up the field, let the crowd take flight. Buffalo's heart, shining so bright. Feel the energy under stadium lights. Bill's Mafia strong, it's the charge tonight.
Mike, bringing it straight from Western New York to the world. This is Charge with Thomas and Sterling. Bill's Mafia, stand tall and proud. We got this.
Bills Mafia, what is going on? Welcome to another edition of the Charge Buffalo podcast. As you can see, things are a little bit different tonight. It is just me, TD. We are missing Sturls. He is on the mend right now. Apparently, me and him just can't get our shit together. So he'll be out this week, but he should be back next week for another edition of Charge Buffalo podcast. But tonight we got a ton to talk about. I am super pumped to get into a bunch of stuff that has happened over the past week since the last time we spoke. Obviously, we do have the Christian Benford news, which is, I mean, incredible stuff. We will get into all of that with CB1 getting that contract that I think we all were waiting on. We're going to talk tonight about Brandon Beane. There's a lot of discourse about Brandon Beane and whether or not people believe he is as good of a general manager as I think he is. We're going to talk a little bit about the new stadium. I got some good news. I made a big decision, and we'll talk about more about that. And then finally, we'll spend the last bit of this show tonight, which will be a condensed show. It's not going to be as long. At least I don't think it will be initially. But we'll be talking about, or we'll be doing a mock draft, a 7-round mock draft, as we've been doing each week leading into the draft. We are, today is April 2nd. We are now 22 days away from the NFL draft. So get excited, Bills Mafia. We are closing in on one of the most exciting weekends of the year for NFL fans. So we're going to get into all that tonight and more. First things first, excuse me. A little, plug for all of us here, guys. First off, make sure you guys are checking out Leveled Up Labels, our apparel sponsor. They do an incredible job, provided some incredible apparel to us here, the team at Charge Buffalo Podcast. On top of that, make sure you guys are subscribed to our YouTube channel. That is the Buffalo Media Network. You'll find all of the content there as well. Find us on TikTok. You can find shorts of the show, just little snippet clips of what Strohls and myself, TD, have talked about each episode. So make sure you talk out there. Those links will be in the chat. But let's get into tonight's show and let's talk about the big news that just came out. Christian Benford, the Buffalo Bills cornerback one, finally got his big deal, his 4-year, $96 million deal. What an incredible contract for a guy that I think a lot of people thought was going to, as the contracts were coming in, you had obviously Greg Rousseau that got a contract. You had Khalil Shakir that got a contract. You had Josh Allen got extended. Contract after contract were coming in, and Christian Benford and James Cook hadn't gotten one. Right. And actually, we'll talk a little bit about James Cook tonight, too. We'll touch on him briefly just after I finish with Benford here. It was a bit of a little unnerving, right? Obviously, Christian Benford had those 2 injuries at the end of at the beginning of this AFC Championship on the heels of the divisional round. So he had 2 back-to-back concussions. Very, very concerning. You didn't know how that was going to go. A lot of contracts came in this offseason, including J.C. Horn from the Panthers in a big-time record-setting contract. That was tough because you didn't know where he was, Christian Benford was going to come in regards to that contract. So a lot of Bills fans and a lot of national media were sitting here kind of saying, well, what's going to be the next step? Do they wait till mid-season? We've seen Brandon Beane has done some contracts mid-season for the Buffalo Bills. Are they going to wait, let him play out his final year of his rookie deal? As a 6th rounder, you only have a 4-year contract. So they're going to let him play out that 4th year and then decide, do they, franchise tag him? Do they try to work out a deal before he hits the free agency? What was that going to look like? Well, in kind of Brandon Beane fashion, which is, kind of out of nowhere, he knocked it out with a 4-year, $96 million deal with Christian Benford. Very, very much a worthwhile deal. Another 4-year deal. So I think this is something of note. Every one of the deals signed is through 2029. So Greg Rousseau's deal, you had Khalil Shakir's deal, Christian Benford's deal. Every single person that needed a contract got a deal, and they're all through 2029. So they're all in lockstep with Josh Allen. And that basically tells you that the Bills see this as the window, right? The window to go after a Super Bowl. Everybody's locked through 2029. They'll reevaluate at that point. A lot of these guys will probably be closing in on mid to late 20s, closing in on that 30-year-old threshold. So that'd be a good time to kind of take a step back and see where they're at. But obviously, Christian Benford, 4 for 96, 4 for 76. Josh Allen, 6 for 330. Greg Rousseau, 4 for 80. Terrell Bernard, which I missed. That was another big contract, 4 for 50. And Khalil Shakir, 4 for 53. Now, the one thing about this Benford deal, which I think is of note, is it was 4 for 76. That is $19 million per year. That's an incredible deal. That number is, if you're talking about where he lines up in terms of cornerback contracts, and I'm going to bring this up real quick for you guys. You would have thought, right, that his contract would have been one of the top contracts, period, in the NFL, right? You had Derek Stingley, who got signed this year, 30 per year. J.C. Horn at 25, Jalen Ramsey, which was kind of I would say a more of a rare case. I don't think he necessarily deserved that, but I think the Dolphins were trying to keep him in house and happy. His is 24.1. Pat Surtain at 24, Jair Alexander at 21, AJ Terrell and Denzel Ward at 20. And then you had a bunch of guys at 19. And that included Marlon Humphrey, Trayvon Diggs, Marshawn Lattimore, Tyson Campbell, L'Jarius Sneed, Jalen Johnson. Now, added to that list is Christian Benford. And that's a pretty darn good deal, right? Because if you look at the age of the contracts, right? Derek Stingley, JC Horn, and Pat Surtain, all 26 and 25, right? But when you get into those 19 contracts, 29, 27, 29, 25, 28, 26, 29. So a lot of those guys in that $19 million range are older corners, whereas Christian Benford is still a young dude. Christian Benford is only, let me just make sure I get this correct, so I'm not speaking, is only 24 years old. So not only is he the youngest of all those guys getting the contracts, but he's the youngest of any guy at $19 million. So another incredible deal done by Brandon Beane. I think it's a terrific financial commitment, right? Because you locked down corner one, which again, we're going to do a mock draft later, but that takes, I think, a little pressure off the necessity to have to go corner. Obviously they still need a cornerback too, but if you're going into the season with Dane Jackson on a 1-year deal, Christian Benford on a 1-year expiring deal, that's a little unnerving heading into this, that you probably need to more so double dip. Now that you have Benford locked up, I think you can get one and then maybe push that second corner to a later round of the 10 picks that we have. So I think this is a really nice deal to kind of help alleviate some of the stress. You know, they always talk about when you go into the draft, you want best player available. By going ahead and making sure you take care of that player initially in that free agency period, and that whole mantra of taking care of your own, you also make sure that you kind of take the stress off of the draft, where you're not going to be forcing something that doesn't need to happen. So again, another great contract. I think that was big time. Now, aside from that, I kind of alluded to this. James Cook was a point of contention, right? And James Cook still hasn't been signed. And at the owners' meetings, which just happened this past week, they talked to Brandon Beane. And one of the points, or one of the questions that was asked to Brandon Beane, obviously the extensions for Bernard and Rousseau and Christian Benford and Josh Allen, all these contracts that came through. Well, the one thing they asked was, well, what about James Cook? Now, previously, when asked about any type of contract, Brandon Beane sat there and said, well, we're not closing the door or anything, closing the door. Maybe we get it done before the draft. Maybe we get it done in the year. Brandon Beane's answer to this very much changed. It went to, we'll reassess this next year, which tells you that kind of closed the door on any contract negotiations at this point, pretty much. Right. Unless something, James Cook sits there and has an epiphany and says, should probably bring that number down a little bit, because that $15 million ask is just not realistic. Right. And, here's the thing. Love James Cook. Love what he did. Had a great AFC Championship game. Had one of the most impressive touchdowns you'll see from a running back in a big game like that. Right. James Cook is not a 3-down back. And I tweeted this out, which if you don't follow me on Twitter, make sure @ThomasDeLoss, give me a follow there. I'd love to chat more with you. I talk about all things Bills and Yankees if you like, all things basically. But one thing I mentioned about James Cook is James Cook actually not being a 3-down back helped Ty Johnson get paid, which another good contract by Brandon Beane. James Cook has an inability to be on the field on 3rd down. And what that means, and I know some people kind of kicked back at me and said, well, he can be on the field as a receiver. Well, that's not a 3rd down back, right? Because you still need somebody out there, because when it's a passing down, when 3rd down is a passing down, if you don't have somebody back there to help block, right, or to chip, whether it's a tight end, whether it's a fullback, a running back in the backfield, whatever that might be, you're basically allowing a free rusher, and Josh needs to get the ball out fast. Well, because James Cook is not a good blocker, and that's been proven over the almost 4 years he's been here, you need somebody back there that can. You need to have somebody back there that can block. and that guy was Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson had an incredible year as a receiving running back, really showed off his hands. That allowed Ty Johnson to get paid and a really nice 2-year extension, and a deservingly so 2-year extension. But because of that inability to be a 3-down back, that inability to be on the field as that ancillary piece, whether it's to blocking, but then to leak out and potentially, like Ty Johnson, be a safety valve for Josh Allen in moments notice where he's playing out of structure, needs to get the ball out fast, whatever that might be, like in that Denver game and then in the playoffs. James Cook doesn't have that. So James Cook is losing that couple hundred yards that Ty Johnson got that could have potentially raised his stock and maybe made him a $15 million running back. But in all reality, right now he is not. And the Bills have put a hard line in the sand and said, this is where we're at. We're not paying you more. I mean, they don't pay, if you're looking at Brandon Beane, they don't pay running backs a second contract, whether it was Devin Singletary or Zach Moss, whomever it might have been, any running back that they've brought in, and they've obviously spent some time and assets in getting them. They haven't spent any money on getting a second contract. So James Cook had his work cut out for him in terms of getting one. He had to do everything in his power. He had to improve on blocking. And I'm sure they told him all this. I'm sure they were like, listen, to be a well-rounded running back, you need to be a good blocker. You need to be good, catching the ball. You need to be good at running. And 2 out of 3 of those things, he is very good. He's one of the best. He's in the top 5 in the NFL in those. The problem is that third thing, the blocking, is very important in terms of this offense. And so because of that, again, like I said, Brandon Beane put a hard line in the sand and said, this is where we're at. And he moved on. And Brandon Beane even said, we couldn't come to a negotiation with his agents. So we moved to other people that needed contracts, i.e. Christian Benford, who we believe that we could get a deal done with. And they did. So, one man's unfortunate situation is another man's riches, or whatever that phrase is. But Christian Benford made out, and James Cook, unfortunately, because of his outward negotiation, which again, Brandon Beane said doesn't like to negotiate in the public, right? Doesn't like to negotiate in the media. James Cook decided to do so with, his very outspoken tweets, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. And he decided to be vocal about what he wanted. And unfortunately, it seems it came to bite him in the ass. So that's where we're at. We're going in this draft. Obviously, we're going to talk about with the mock draft, whether a running back is a potential, need to replace James Cook after this year. Obviously, they're going to play out his deal this year. They'll see. They do have control over James Cook, which is nice. If they want to, they have the franchise tag, which is $13.25 million. It should go up after this year. Most years, the franchise tag on almost every single position, minus like safety and running back, which have dropped in the past after some weird years. But the franchise tag is an option for the Bills and Brandon Beane after this year for James Cook. So they could use that to keep him in-house. They could use a transition tag for James Cook. We'll see how they handle things. But as of right now, James Cook is kind of waiting in the weeds. Probably will play out this year in his last year of his deal, and then they'll go from there. So, but, like I said, great deal for Brandon Beane. And, in terms of Brandon Beane, and I really want to talk about this because I think it's important for what Brandon Beane has done, right? I think Brandon Beane has done, for me personally, a really, really good job. I think that it's not always easy when you're talking about, like everybody's like, oh, well, general manager should have done this or general manager should have done that. Right. I know a lot of people, in hindsight, they're like, well, like the one that people like to talk about is the Bills should have taken DK Metcalf. Right. Well, that's all sweet and fine and dandy, but I'm pretty sure a lot of teams would have liked to take Christian Benford, who went in the 6th round, right? Or Howie Roseman, who is and he is a very good GM. This is not to sit there and, go against the guy, but I think he's one of the best GMs, if not the best GM. He also took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. So every GM has his hiccups. Right. Brandon Beane has done a very, very good job in terms of finding high quality talent at the right spots. Right. Now, has he had his misses? Obviously, Kyer Elam is one that comes to mind for a lot of people. They just traded him to Dallas for a 5th-round pick. They gave a 6th and they got a 7th back, right? So good deal, right? They got an upgraded pick. They got rid of Kyer Elam and his $2.5 million contract, but they did a nice job in terms of getting what they wanted for the Buffalo Bills. And they unfortunately got rid of Kyer, who didn't work out, but you're going to have those misses. Every GM does. Unfortunately, everybody's hyper-focused on Brandon Beane because he is their general manager. But if you look across the board at every GM in the NFL, they all have their misses. Both 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round, across the board, you name it, they have them. So I think the belief that Brandon Beane is, a bad GM, and a lot of people like to call him a bad GM. His biggest miss is obviously Kyer Elam. Cody Ford, a lot of people use as a miss. I don't think he's a miss. I don't think, it didn't hit here, but he's still gotten contracts in other places. So he's still going. Boogie Basham was definitely a miss for the Buffalo Bills. It didn't work out. They went, Greg Rousseau, then Boogie Basham. Didn't work out in the system. Who knows if it will work out somewhere else? It hasn't yet. He didn't work out in New York with the Giants. Zach Moss, he did really nicely for the Bengals until he got hurt. I don't think it's a miss for the Bills. He had his moments here in Buffalo. Is what it is. Some schemes it doesn't work. Some teams the square peg round hole type of situation where unfortunately the player doesn't fit the need here. There's some players that have worked, some players that haven't. But in the grand scheme, the nice thing for Brandon Beane is he landed Josh Allen. And if you look at Bill Belichick, I like to use Bill Belichick as a similar kind of aspect, right? Or a similar comparison. Excuse me. Bill Belichick, he drafted Tom Brady. More so, he fell into Tom Brady, right? Getting him at pick 199, a legendary pick. And obviously, by most accounts, the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. When it comes to Tom Brady, it wasn't always easy, right? Like he had some bad teams. Obviously, they brought some talent in and they found some nice picks, whether it was like guys like Julian Edelman. Obviously, they drafted Gronkowski. They brought in Randy Moss at one point. They had some nice pieces here and there. But for the most part, if you look at the drafts of Bill Belichick, he wasn't a good general manager, not only as that coach, but he was the GM for that team for a long time. And he was really bad at finding good talent. Unfortunately, or fortunately for him per se, when you have a quarterback like Tom Brady, like a Josh Allen, like a Patrick Mahomes, those quarterbacks have a tendency of being franchise band-aids, right? That they are able to pretty much cover up a lot of warts from a general manager. And again, not to say that Brandon Beane is an incredible or, has his warts or doesn't have his warts, because he's had incredible drafts. He's also has misses. But if you're looking, the overarching, theme of Brandon Beane is he's done a really nice job. He's found some very good talent, right? And yes, if you take the quarterback off, I know a lot of people say, well, if you take Josh Allen off the team will be bad. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you take any team's franchise quarterback off their roster, they're going to be bad. So that's the thing about Brandon Beane. When you talk about what he's done, the overall landscape of his time here in Buffalo is there's a lot of hits, there's a lot of misses, right? Or I wouldn't say a lot, but there's misses in his time, right? But in all reality, when you're talking about Buffalo and you're talking about or being a general manager in the NFL, there's no way to project out players. And that's what I talked about with somebody else the other day is you want to sit there and have this belief that, oh, Brandon Beane's done this or Brandon Beane's done that. But there's no way to project out these players. You can have an opinion, right? As a scout, as an assistant general manager, as a general manager, you can have an opinion, but without actually sitting there and knowing, because there's no way, I mean, in all reality, even taking a quarterback at the top of the draft, there's no surefire 100%, this is how it's going to turn out. You're just doing guesswork. And the fact that Brandon Beane has gotten more of those guesses correct is a testament to the fact that he's done good, solid work as a general manager with good scouting. He has a good team and an incredible infrastructure. So I look at what Brandon Beane has done and his overall time here, this past draft, obviously a work in progress, but the one before that has been really, really good. Obviously a lot of the guys, look at this offseason, right? And who they signed. They went ahead and re-signed pretty much everybody. Christian Benford, Greg Rousseau, Terrell Bernard, Khalil Shakir. And a lot of those guys were from the same draft class. And you got stalwart key cogs for this team for many years to come. I mean, Khalil Shakir, one of the better receivers in the game. Terrell Bernard, one of the better linebackers in the game. Greg Rousseau, one of the best edge-setting defensive ends, kind of growing into being a good defensive end in terms of pass rush, but incredible. Christian Benford, one of the best corners in the game. Like, good, solid pieces. Great stuff to build on. And he's already had good contract extensions before. Ed Oliver got a good contract extension. Spencer Brown got re-signed as the right tackle. Deion Dawkins this past offseason at the left tackle. Like, a lot of good stuff happening in this team moving forward. So I really love where we're at. Very, very excited in terms of the direction of this team. So I think a lot of people should be very positive in terms of where we are, what we've done, and how we're trending. And I think this offseason, what they've done, bringing in guys like Joey Bosa on a 1-year, $12 million deal was a really nice piece, specifically projecting out. And obviously, again, guesswork. We'll hope that he can stay healthy. But if they believe he can stay healthy, you have him here. Maybe he signs an extension. Now you have two very good defensive ends in Greg Rousseau and Joey Bosa as your starters, and then some nice ancillary pieces behind, whether it's Javon Solomon, AJ Epinesa, whatever that is. You have a nice core building block in that line. And then in the draft, you add some pieces, right? Maybe you get a Kenneth Grant or a Derek Harmon, Tyleek Williams, whoever that might be, and you're adding more in, and you keep stacking that depth and you keep stacking that line. So, you could replace Daquan Jones at the end of this year, or maybe post June 1st, maybe they feel like they can upgrade that. You save $8 million. Voila, you're in a good spot there too. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts and pieces that the Bills are still kind of, with the draft coming up in 22 days, there's a lot happening. So I very exciting times ahead. So more big news coming in terms of Buffalo Bills stuff. The Bills are going to be opening up their brand new stadium September of 2026, officially opening July of 2026. Pete Gwelly, who is the COO of the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres, he mentioned this past week at the owners' meetings that they are going to be having a soft launch. They don't want it just to be a hard launch into the new stadium. So they're going to have some potential, whether it's another sporting event or a concert or something, opening the new stadium in 2026. But exciting stuff is Highmark Stadium, the long-lasting stadium from 1974. That was Rich Stadium, Ralph Wilson Stadium, New Era Field, then Highmark. Is going to be going away. That stadium will be demolished March of 2027. But September 2026, the Buffalo Bills will start their new saga, their new iteration in the new stadium, Highmark Stadium across the street. And it's exciting. It is a beautiful, beautiful venue. If you haven't driven by it recently, it's massive. It is, footprint-wise, it is significantly bigger. It's significantly taller. The top part of the stadium is actually at the same height as the lights of the old stadium. So, it's a very, very big venue. It is, the way that's situated is inclined so that you are basically over the top of your own, basically like almost kind of sitting on top of yourself, because they want you right on top of the action. They want you close to the field. They have the awning, which is a 360 awning, because they want the noise to be inside. They want, like Seattle, how their stadium is super, super loud. This is going to be built for Buffalo, and it's exciting, right? It's a stadium that is built for Buffalo. It is raw. The outside is going to be kind of an homage to Buffalo and the other venues of the past, whether it's the Odd or, Ralph Wilson Stadium, different things that are going to be paid as the historical provenance of this city and this place that we love. But on top of that, just the overall building it's beautiful, truly. And Ian's going to put it on the screen. It's from the Buffalo Stadium Live. They do an incredible job. You can check them out on YouTube at Buffalo Stadium Live. They post, periodic videos of the progress of the stadium build. And I'll tell you, it's beautiful. Truly, it's beautiful. My wife and I made a decision, which we had gone back and forth. We had what they called a new stadium experience, December 23rd, just before Christmas, which was tough because shelling out a lot of money before Christmas is a tough decision. But we decided to go ahead and make that decision We were wanting to we wanted to be there, but we didn't know about the money. But my wife and I did go ahead and decide to lock it in. We did get season tickets in the new stadium, section 138. So we are very, very excited about the future of the stadium. There is some cool talking points. A lot of Buffalo Bills fans, probably will not get the Super Bowl. I would almost bet any amount of money. They are going to be building around, kind of like if you've ever been to Foxborough in New England, they have what they call Patriot Place. They're going to be building all around the stadium, restaurants and stores and hotels, basically making it a destination. They've talked about Buffalo Bills or a Buffalo Hall of Fame right there, which I think would be incredible. Obviously, you already have the field house, which you can see in that video. They have the existing stadium. They're going to have a technology building, which is going to be on the outside. They're going to have the fastest internet, I believe, of any venue in the North American just sphere of all different arenas that are there. But man, it's going to be such a cool experience for Bills fans because it is an all-encompassing experience, right? But again, like I said, they're talking about other things. The NFL draft is apparently potentially going to come to Buffalo, whether 2028 or 2029. So that's something to be looking forward to. Could we see a WWE pay-per-view at this venue? If you know me, you know I'm a huge wrestling fan. So that's super exciting. Overall, man, I am so pumped to see how this continues to evolve. There's such beautiful aspects to the stadium that I think a lot of people are really excited about. I know I've been very critical about the whole thing, and it took a while for me to kind of come around to making this decision. Maybe it's the FOMO, right? But I believe that it's a good decision for my family. Maybe not everybody's, but as for ours. So we're very, very excited about the future of this. As I said, you could check this out. Go on YouTube. Lots of different videos of this new stadium. Some up close videos that you can see. Ian, if you want to throw one of the ones of the inside of the stadium, which you could see the real stacked, layered view of how the seats are. That's exciting because, man, you are right on top of the action. I mean, you could basically smell the sweat from the players as they're running on the field. There you go. Incredible stuff, man. I mean, if you look at that is such a beautiful, and it's going to be a gradient seating experience. So it's red and blue gradient for the seats, which is really cool. Obviously, you don't see that, but you can find pictures online. And as you can see with that upper deck, man, it's vertical, right? It's steep. I couldn't do it. I'm not good for heights, but man, you can really see that you are right on top of the action. So it's an exciting time to be a Bills fan. And as stuff evolves, we'll keep talking about more. I'll keep bringing more updates of the new stadium and what's happening and maybe potential news of what could be happening. As I said, the old stadium is going to be demolished March 2027. They're still trying to figure out what they're going to do in that spot to commemorate the old stadium, which so many beautiful memories. This is the last season there, so there'll be some more beautiful memories this year. Hopefully a Super Bowl, and we'll see from that. But now we're going to get into the mock draft tonight, everybody's favorite experience. Obviously, it's a nice little way to see how things look. You just couple thousand iterations. I've done a bunch on my phone. Obviously, we talk, Sturls and myself do this every single week on the show. We do one at the end of the show to kind of go through and see how things are going to, kind of shake out. I have my ideas. Obviously, Sturls is not here tonight, which we'll have him back next week. But for me personally, this is a nice way for me to kind of see what I'm going to do, what my thought process is. And again, make sure you like, subscribe, rate, and review this show. It means the world to all of us here at Buffalo Media Network. For myself, Sturls, my brother Ian backstage. So make sure you do that. And also check us out on TikTok. But let's get into this mock draft tonight. Obviously, we have 10 picks over the 7 rounds. I'm going to slow this down a little bit just in case if something falls into place that we like. And we'll just kind of go through and see how this shakes out, see if there's anything that really kind of piques our interest. The Bills do need some key positions, defensive tackle being one, defensive end potentially is a big one. Corner, like we've talked about. Early in the show, we talked about Christian Benford. The fact that they signed the contract takes that kind of that really urgency off the table, I think is important. But there is some options here, right? We got Malachi Starks, safety, really, really good safety out of Georgia. I think he would be an instant impact. You put him as a deep ball safety. Now you have Cole Bishop in that box role where he can kind of take on, whether it's a tight end or, blitzing packages, whatever that might be. I think there's options. Luther Burden, really good running back. Derek Harmon, a guy that I think Bills fans would fall in love with. Tyleek Williams, one of my personal favorites. At this point, I think we're going to go with Derek Harmon, though, man, Malachi Starks is a really good one. It's tough to say no to Malachi Starks, too. Let's do Malachi Starks, and we're going to see if we can get another defensive tackle. I'm going to do that because I think that's an instant impact right there. You've got your safety room set up for years to come. Bills are be back up at 56, and let's see what we got here. Okay, I kind of like what we got here, right? You got Shamar Turner, Darian Porter, really nice corner right there. He's a little bit older. I think he's 26, if my memory. No, he's 24. Okay. I don't know why I thought Darian was older. Okay, so he's 24. You would lock up your corner 2, which is a really nice position. Now your secondary is pretty much all set. And then maybe we can see if we get a defensive tackle, like an Alfred Collins with the next pick at 62. I think that's a good one right there. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to Darian Porter, see if we can get Alfred Collins. And we can, we have Alfred Collins. Omar Norman Lott's an interesting one too. More of a 3-tech, 5-tech speed rusher. One of the better pass rushing defensive tackles in this draft. He's an interesting option here. Kyle Kennard, really good defensive end from South Carolina. CJ West, defensive tackle out of Indiana, 6'2", 317. He'd be a good 1-tech for this team. A little shorter on the length, right? As I said, 31.5-inch arms, which is a little shorter. You really want 33. Anything above 33 is nice. Obviously both ranking in the 10th, 6'1", 31.5, 10th percentile. That's not good. Doesn't mean it's end all be all. You've seen some guys with some shorter length, but you obviously want to see bigger. Then you look at Alfred Collins, right? In terms of his size. And he's 6'5", 320. He's a big dude. Big dude. He can play anywhere from 0 to 5. So he gives you everything you need. I think he fits. And he's 23 and a half years old. So got a lot of room to grow in terms of both potential, maybe gaining a little bit of weight. And just in overall, you could have him for 10 years. 33 is not a bad spot for a defensive tackle. So let's go ahead and do Alfred Collins right here. Obviously we have no 3rd round picks, so we're going to wait it out, get into that 4th round. Potentially when we have a couple picks there, we could fill some stuff in. We obviously already, I keep saying obviously, excuse me. We got Malachi Starks fills out that safety room. Darian Porter as a corner, Alfred Collins in the 3rd. Now you're getting to this nice spot, right? Tez Johnson's here. Isaiah Bond's stock is going to be dropping. It's a little concerning with all the off the field stuff. So I think I'm going to take Femi Oladejo, a nice defensive end from UCLA. I think that's a really nice spot for the Bills to kind of fill out that defensive end. And maybe we can get a corner or a wide receiver with their 2nd, 4th round pick at 132. We'll see what else we could do there. I don't think there's an immediate need, and who knows if they trade for a wide receiver. There's Torrey Horton here, which I think is a really nice pick. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, Torrey Horton might be the guy here, 6'3", 185. Gives you, despite flexibility, acceleration, long speed, he's just a very good wide receiver. If you ask Sturls, who lives in Colorado, and this obviously Torrey Horton played for Colorado State, he is the guy. And here's the other thing. He's from Fresno, California. You know anything about that area, that is a good area for a football player. That's where Josh Allen is from, around Fresno. So that's obviously an interesting one. So let's go ahead and let's take Torrey Horton. I think that would be a nice pick right there. You fill out another position. Now you got your safety, cornerback, defensive interior, which is your 1-tech, your defensive end, and your wide receiver. We go ahead here again. You could get a wide receiver or could get a quarterback, Quinn Ewers, Kyle McCord. Everybody knows I love my Kyle McCord picks right there. We haven't taken a running back yet. That's potential. We could wait a little bit. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins is an interesting one. He's a little raw, but man, he's got a lot of potential. 6'5", 280. He was dealing with a lot of stuff, a foot issue at Georgia, which I think, for a guy, and if you listen to the coach over at Georgia, he even would say Tyrion is supremely talented. And I think he has a ton of potential. So he is an option. I got another defensive end. That would be 2, but a guy that could bring a lot. The other one I think is Robert Longerbeam. 5'11", 178. He's a senior, brings a lot to the table. I think he's super crafty. I think he'd be a really nice addition opposite of Christian Benford, but obviously you already have Darren Porter. So it's another guy later on that you could bring in to potentially learn. I think either one is a good option. Again, you could go tight end. Thomas Fadone's a nice option there. Linebacker is, again, another potential option. I'm okay with any of them, but because it's early, I'm going to go Kyle McCord at a quarterback, just have a backup. I know people don't agree stylistically. He's different from Josh, but it's still a good quarterback in that spot, right? It's a good addition. We could go Denzel Burke. Denzel Burke is a really, really good corner. He can play all different types of alignments, whether it's man, he could play zone. I mean, he's done a little bit of everything. And playing at Ohio, obviously he's been able to do both. Playing in Ohio helps him. Playing at a big school in a big Power 4 conference, I guess. But he has incredible ball skills. I think he would be a great addition. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's add another corner right here. Never can take too many corners. And then we're going to finish that off by taking Tyrion, Ingram, Dawkins. And let's see if we get a running back. Marcus Yarns is a fun option here. Marcus, I think, taking him late would be surprising, but he fits the good size, 5'11", 183. Again, another guy that is super elusive. He fits that James Cook role. So that's kind of what you want. With Ray Davis kind of being that more, I don't want to say Zach Moss, right? He's not the Zach Moss mold, but he's kind of that guy that runs between the tackles, and James Cook being the guy that bounces it out wide. That's what you want right there. So let's go ahead and take Marcus Yarns as your 6th round pick. We have one more pick in the 6th round, and then that is it. And that is the end of this draft. I think we've done an incredible job. Malachi Starks, Darian Porter, Alfred Collins, Femi Oladejo, Torrey Horton, Kyle McCord, Denzel Burke, Tyrion, Ingram, Dawkins, Marcus Yarns. And let's finish this off. There's some really nice options. I'd be stunned if Tyler Shuck is still there. He probably should go a lot higher. I'm going to take Shamir Dyke. I have heard a lot about him. And man, I think he is a super crafty wide receiver. Really, really just a good under the radar talent from Florida. So we're going to take him to finish off the draft. 2 wide receivers. Crazy, I know. But I think it really, it's just a nice little stash player, and maybe it'll make up for Justin Shorter from Florida that we took from a couple years ago that never worked out. So love this draft. I think this draft is one of my favorite ones that I have done and that we have done here at the Charge Buffalo podcast. So I'm very, very excited about all this. Again, guys, want to thank you for tuning in tonight. I know Searles isn't here, but on behalf of myself, Sturls, and my brother Ian backstage as the producer of the Charge Buffalo podcast. Thank you guys for all the support so far. It means the world to us. Make sure you subscribe, hit that notification button. It'll let you know every single time we're live, which is Thursday nights at 8 p.m. It means the world, truly. We have done so much work to build this thing up, and we're continuing on. We're going to have some live coverage of the NFL draft. You can hang out with us and have a little fun. We'll have some drinks, get a little tipsy, get a little goofy. Sturls and I have some ideas coming forward of some new content, which will be very interesting. That'll be coming down the pipeline. I'm excited about that. And just in general, I really, I think this is going to be a fun year ahead of us. Last season at the new stadium, or the current stadium, before the new stadium starts, and bright future ahead with the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. So again, for all of us here at the Charge Buffalo podcast, thank you so much. Means the world to us. We will see you here next week, and let's go Buffalo.
Hot on the mic, bringing it straight from Western New York to the world. This is Charge with Thomas and Sterling. Bills Mafia, stand tall and proud. We got this.